Hello everyone and welcome back to the Rent to Retirement YouTube channel. I'm here in beautiful Kona, Hawaii, and today we're going to get right into our discussion about the risks of investing in real estate. What? A real estate channel telling you why not to buy real estate? Well, not exactly. Don't forget to like and subscribe and turn on the notification bell below to keep up to date with our videos. And please go back and watch our videos, The 5 Benefits of Real Estate Investing, or How Many Rental Properties Does It Take to Retire? It will add some contrast to your thinking because real estate is neither all good or all bad. Now let's go ahead and brainstorm all the possible risks of investing in real estate. If you can think of any more, please let me know in the comment section below. First, let's talk about tenants. This is the #1 risk I've heard people talk about when it comes to real estate investing. What if I can't find a tenant? What if they aren't paying? What happens if my tenants trash my property? Let's discuss. So let's start off with, what if I can't find a tenant? This is a common risk that I hear of a lot. The reality is that, yes, it is possible for you not to be able to find a tenant, but just because it's possible doesn't mean that it's likely. If you've done your homework and have made an educated purchase of an investment property, finding a tenant is a very, very small risk. We can also always A, lower the rents, or B, improve the property to make the property more desirable. What if my tenants don't pay me? This is another classic risk that negative Nancy's like to use. Well, again, it is possible for tenants not to pay you, especially in recessions or hard times. Things happen and people lose their job, etc. But if we've educated ourselves on how to ensure this doesn't happen or hire great property managers to do this for us, we can avoid this risk. To minimize the risk of a tenant not paying, we can A, screen our potential tenants by having them fill out an application, checking their credit and prior eviction record if they have one. B, don't ever become friends with your tenants in the first place so you don't get taken advantage of when they want to skip a month of payment and you end up caving to the requests. Or C, if the tenant really refuses to pay, don't be afraid to use the eviction process to solve the issue before it compiles. If you're a real estate investor for long enough, you're bound to have at least one eviction at some point. It's just a numbers game. Lastly, if you want a creative solution to a tenant not paying, you can use the cash for keys method, which is actually just to pay the tenant to vacate the property sooner than later so the lack of payment doesn't accumulate a large loss for you month after month. Evictions can also take a long time depending on your state's landlord laws, so cash for keys can take care of getting a delinquent tenant out swiftly and on better terms than an eviction. Next risk or question, what if my tenant destroys my property? There are certainly nightmare situations in landlording where a tenant decides to do a little bit more than just put general wear and tear on the property. In this case, we as landlords must make sure to have an ample security deposit, usually 1 month's rent, which we can use to repair damages upon tenant departure. Landlords also have the right in these situations and can take the tenant to small claims court to recuperate costs that exceed the security deposit amount. Very unlikely, but it can happen. To get renters that have higher pride of rentership, it's important to look for properties in nicer areas, which also correlates with tenants with higher average income. Next, what if my tenant slips and falls in my property and sues me? Liability is most certainly a risk that should not be taken lightly with real estate investing. However, we have a few ways to protect against a lawsuit happening. First, we can hold our real estate investments in an LLC, which allows us to protect the rest of our assets from a potential judgment if a lawsuit did occur. In essence, we are holding the property as a business asset, and if the business gets sued out of existence, yes, it certainly hurts, but at least our personal income, stock investments, cars, and other assets are not at risk. Second, we can make sure to get a good liability insurance policy for the property. The average liability policy per rental home is $1 million. Trust me, insurance is cheap compared to the risk you're taking by not having it at all. Lastly, it's important to have pride in the safety of our property to keep your tenants safe. Tenants are people too, and we need to make sure we have the proper smoke and CO2 detectors, fire extinguishers, and other safety items to keep our property up to code and safe. Regular safety inspections and swift maintenance are also a large part of mitigating liability. Take care of tenant safety complaints right away if there's a health and safety risk, such as a gas leak. Don't be a negligent landlord. What if I get a call from a tenant in the middle of the night? Their sink is spraying out water, the heat's not working, etc. Landlording can be hard, that's no secret, but real estate investors don't all have to be landlords. Focus on the investing side and less on the maintenance side by hiring a property manager. Not just any property manager. We want to find an experienced team that we can get references from, verify their track record and build trust, get examples of their communication with other clients, and a property manager that has fair prices. We want property managers to take a % of monthly rent not a flat monetary fee. Property managers must only make money when you make money. We can also avoid calls in the middle of the night by simply buying a house that is newer and has lower maintenance costs. Next, let's talk about natural disasters and weather. So what happens if my property burns down or gets hit by a tornado? We've touched on this before, but really, insurance is just the name of the game. Some areas will require that you have special types of insurance, such as flood insurance, but you can turn the dial down on risk by getting bigger and better coverage. Okay, Sam, but what about market crashes, recessions, and corrections? Well, this is actually my personal favorite risk of investing in real estate. What if I'm buying a property at the top of a market and everything comes crashing down? Won't I lose everything like in 2008? These are all great questions. However, there is some nuance to real estate investing. Here at Rent to Retirement, we preach sound, buy and hold income properties and don't touch fix and flips with a 10-foot pole. The important distinction between these two strategies is the fact that in the long term, buy and hold rentals, we are looking primarily at cash flow or income that the property produces, not necessarily the price of the home itself. So if you buy a home at the top of the market, and it loses half its value overnight, we're not sweating because we still have cash flowing coming in through the rent. Where people end up getting burned is when their properties aren't cash flowing or just barely cash flowing. Rents can go down slightly in recessions, but not too much. So if you're just staying afloat because of the price of your house, you're no longer investing, you are speculating. What happened in 2008 was people lost their jobs and could no longer make their personal home payments. Some people also had 2, 3, or even 4 houses all being supported by their active income. As Robert Kiyosaki might say, homes in 2008 were not assets, they were liabilities. To further hedge risk, we need to make sure we are locking in long-term, fixed-rate financing so that if a recession hits, our payments stay the same and the lender doesn't suddenly raise our loan's interest rate like what happened to many owners in the Great Recession. We can make sure we hunt for deals that we can buy for under market value to make sure we have a buffer right off the bat. Lastly, let's make sure to keep reserves in the bank because, hey, you just don't know what you don't know. Things happen that nobody can expect. So just make sure to have 3 to 6 months worth of expenses in the bank at any given time. Trust me, it will help you sleep better at night. Also in real estate, the value of property never really goes to zero. You can't lose everything. The property itself always has some utility to it, such as the ability to use it as a home for yourself, store your stuff, or take it all apart and just sell the materials. Land is almost never worthless either, unless you bought a house on top of a radioactive material dumping site, that is. You might actually have a negative value at that point. What if I want to sell my property but I can't? That is the essence of liquidity. How quickly can I sell an investment if I wanted to? Real estate is known for having low liquidity as it takes some time to put a property up for sale in the market, have people come walk through it and look at it, put the property under contract, let the buyer inspect and let the bank appraise it, etc., etc., etc. Even in hot markets, this process can take weeks, unlike a stock where you can just click a button and be done. There's a risk in having your money tied up somewhere without having the ability to access it. In this case, we can mitigate this risk as much as possible by taking care of the property and making sure there isn't a lot to be fixed when a buyer is in the due diligence phase. If you're invested with good fundamentals, there's usually always new investors that would love to buy your property. We're not talking about spec homes, we're talking about good, solid homes in great areas. Real estate investors love to go shopping for new properties in economic downturns. What if there are changes in the tax code or insurance premiums for your property? It's no secret that real estate has massive tax benefits for investors. However, it is a risk that the tax code we have right now may not read the same forever. Tax code changes based on politics and who is in the positions of power in Congress. As we know, politics is anything but predictable, so it's important to not base our numbers for our investments off anything related to the tax code and people in power. The tax benefits of owning rental property are just the icing on the cake. What if my budgets or timelines are inaccurate? With all real estate investments, there is something known as a pro forma, or a document showing our expected numbers we'll see on an investment property. If we take all of these numbers and calculations at face value from a seller or agent, we could be putting ourselves at a big risk. Please don't believe what other people say if they don't have the same motives as you. Sellers want to sell, but you want to get a good deal. This is why we encourage all of our investors at Rent to Retirement to check the projected numbers out for yourself, check our work, and use as conservative underwriting as needed to feel comfortable before making an investment. Before you buy, also make sure to do tons of due diligence on a property, such as inspections, appraisals, and get rehab quotes locked in up front. Also make sure to have capital expenditure funds up front in case things go wrong early on in your ownership of a property. Just using your cash flow to build your CapEx fund can add risk to your investment. Opportunity cost risk. An unrealized risk of many real estate investors is the opportunity cost risk, or missing out on something else that we could be making even more money on than our investment in real estate. Well, I dare you to go find a better investment than real estate from an overall returns perspective and a risk perspective. Let me know if you find one, I'd love to know. You should only ever invest according to your investing goals. Buying a stock that you think is going to soar when your goal is to build your passive income and retire early is not a congruent or smart move to make. How do we actually reduce our risk? The number one way to reduce your risk is to educate yourself. The only true way to reduce your risk is to get educated, learn as much as you can from others, and make sure not to make the same mistakes they did. As Warren Buffett says, risk comes from not knowing what you're doing. Thanks for watching, everybody. Come join us at renttoretirement.com, where we are leading the charge in real estate education and bridging the gap to investing in cash flowing rental properties. Get on a free call with one of our investment counselors, educate yourself, and develop a plan that you can invest in real estate with low or no risk. Thank you so much for watching. Remember to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell below. Thank you for taking the time to watch, and we'll see you on the next one. Peace.